Good day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here. So guys, E3 2017, or as one of my mates from work has fittingly described it, Christmas for gamers, is now well and truly underway, with the guys over at EA Games getting the ball rolling this year with their press conference. In today's video, we're going to be kicking off my E3 2017 coverage by taking a look at what EA had to show us this time around. What was good, what was bad, and what was just downright cringeworthy. And surprisingly enough, for an EA press conference, everything seemed to be in check. I know, right? Very surprising indeed. Anyway guys, if you're interested in only very select parts of the press conference and what I've got to say about them, then feel free to use the description down below and the timestamps to navigate the video accordingly. But without further ado, let's dive into what we saw from EA's opening E3 presentation of this year. Kickstarting off the EA conference for this year was Madden. Oh, who am I kidding? I, for one guys, couldn't give less of a shit about the yearly sports games that EA keeps pumping out. I know that some people amongst my audience here are very excited for these sports games that release every year, which is great, but for the love of God, it is something that bores me to death, so I am in no way, shape or form going to talk about it here in this video. So, sorry to all of the sports fans out there, but there's going to be no sports here in this video. Anyway, following the announcement of Madden 18, the developers of Battlefield 1 came forth to take the stage to announce some upcoming content for the second half of 2017 for Battlefield 1. The developers initially spent a little bit of time discussing the upcoming night maps that are making their way to the game that promise to change up the way we play Battlefield. Well, at least on these maps. Now, I do remember back when the concept of night maps was brought to light, see what I did there, in Battlefield 4, the exact same thing was said. Night maps will change the way that we play. But due to all of the technology that was available in Battlefield 4, the nighttime setting felt more like an aesthetic change over a gameplay change. However, due to Battlefield 1's setting and corresponding kit options, I'm more inclined to believe that this time around we might actually see some fresh gameplay experiences from these nighttime maps. However, the main focus of the Battlefield segment of this conference was on the upcoming In the Name of the Tsar DLC that is set to release in September this year for Battlefield 1. The DLC is set to contain 6 new maps, which is a nice bump up from the more common 4 maps we see per expansion pack, and of course it will see a flurry of new vehicles, weapons, and the Russians' Women's Battalion of Death. So to anyone who went full SJW mode when the developers announced that the game would not include female soldiers at the launch, your prayers have finally been answered. You may cease your triggering. Sadly, the Battlefield franchise is still tainted by the outdated premium/season pass model for its DLC, which will just result in this DLC splitting up the player base even more. But anyway, let's change gears a little bit here by taking a look at Need for Speed Payback. While the announcement trailer for the game went live a couple days before the conference, we got our first look at the gameplay and some information surrounding the story at this conference. Essentially, the single player is going to follow the story of 3 highly skilled drivers on their crusade, if you will, against the House, the enemy faction of this game, with heist missions, cop chases, as well as standard street races all being a significant part of this story and the gameplay. Something that I found particularly interesting surrounding this iteration of the Need for Speed series is that the campaign will have 3 playable characters that all have their own personality and abilities, taking a very literal page out of GTA 5's book. The gameplay that we saw at this conference showed off a heist mission with character swapping coming into effect and vehicle takedowns that will feel very similar to the fans of the Burnout series, despite the fact that the crashes that we were shown in this build of the game didn't look as half as good as the ones that we saw back in Burnout Paradise. A second segment of the Need for Speed Payback demonstration focused on the vehicle customization side of the game, which was presented very awkwardly from a content creator who obviously works very close with EA on providing feedback for their games, which is all well and good and all, but if you're going to make a featured content creator present an element of your game at E3, at least make sure that they feel comfortable with it. Seriously, the poor dude looks so uncomfortable and just so underprepped, and it made the whole thing just really awkward and kind of cringeworthy. Thankfully, the footage that we saw of the customization made up for that awkwardness because it really did look fantastic. If there is one thing Need for Speed games have been doing right lately, it is the customization side of the game. Now, just before EA moved on to their grand finale for the evening, and I think we all know what that's going to be, they had a couple of brand new IPs to announce. The first one came in the form of Anthem, a new game from BioWare, and sadly, that's all we really know at this point. We saw a short cinematic trailer that gave us an idea as to what to expect from an artistic standpoint, but beyond that we sort of have been left guessing. Up until tomorrow, when BioWare shows off the game at Microsoft's E3 conference, so I'm very excited to see what we see on that front. We also got a brief look at a new EA original title called A Way Out, a story-driven co-op game that is quite unique for its time, because the developers have stated that the only way to get the full experience out of this game is to play it in split-screen format on your couch with another player. Again, something that is rather unheard of these days, a game that is designed from the ground up with split screen in mind, and it sounds like developers are taking full advantage of this design choice by including some really interesting concepts, like how one player controlling one character might be going through a cutscene while the other player is still actually playing the game. I, for one, am very keen to see if the developers here can create an amazing experience that will drive more interest towards the couch co-op style of games that have lately been long forgotten. But anyway, with all that aside, that now brings us to the grand finale of EA's press conference, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now here's the thing about Star Wars Battlefront 2, guys. Back when we got that announcement trailer a couple of weeks ago, things were looking up. A lot of our concerns appeared to have been addressed, whether it be the lacking single-player campaign or the lacking amount of content in general. It had looked as though EA had taken our feedback and finally said to themselves, you know what, we kinda done fucked up. How about we listen to our audience a bit and see how we can improve? It was paramount for them to address all of these concerns at this E3 conference if they wanted to ensure the success of this game for the long term. And now the question remains, did they do just that? Well, they sure as shit did. During the presentation, we got our first look at the multiplayer gameplay with a gameplay trailer, as well as a live-streamed multiplayer match similar to the one that they did last year for Battlefield 1. The gameplay took place on the Assault on Theed game mode, where separatist battle droids have to protect an MTT as it moves forward to the Capitol building. If they successfully make it to the building, the fight moves indoors to a claustrophobic, tight-knit, corridor-filled environment that is sure to result in some chaotic battles. And while the mere sight of seeing battle droids and clones duking it out in the glorious graphics that we've come to expect from DICE games was exciting enough, the most exciting stuff surrounding this game was far from just the new eras. Gone are the hero and vehicle pickup tokens. Now, in order to get access to one of these heroes or vehicles, all you need to do is perform well by completing tasks like killing people and such, and you will earn battle points that allow you to purchase heroes, vehicles, and unique classes straight from the spawn screen. And yes, before anyone asks, you can only have one hero of each type on the battlefield at once, so don't get worried about overpopulation, if you will. Now overall, this appears to be a much nicer system that allows you to play as the more powerful figures and contraptions from the Star Wars universe, but you must first perform well enough to unlock them. While I understand why the guys at DICE made the choices they did with the first Battlefront game, with the intention of making hero classes available to all players, it was just a clumsy system that hurt the overall progression of the battle. This one looks a lot nicer overall. We also got our first look at the class system in play, and it looks as though DICE have put a lot of thought towards actually balancing and designing the classes so that they each have a unique role to fill on the battlefield. Again, a decision that will greatly improve the flow of battle from the last game and will add some much needed structure. But beyond the gameplay, the goodness didn't stop there. The Battlefront segment of the show was presented by Janina Gavanka, who is playing the main character in the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, who just seemed so happy to be there and be a part of the whole thing, which to me says one thing: her performance as the main character of Battlefront 2 will be as passionate as ever, which will hopefully bring us an awesome single player experience that we've been dying to play in modern day times. And just as the cherry on top, Janina also confirmed that all post-launch content in the form of weapons, maps, modes and vehicles will be free to all players. No season pass bullshit or anything like that. You buy the game, you're going to get the full game and all of the planned content. My main concern now is, however, what are we going to see replace the Season Pass to fund the game for the long term? That's something that we have yet to see, but hopefully it remains to be good news all around. And folks, with all that said, that wraps up today's video discussing the EA E3 2017 press conference that opened up the show and thus commenced Christmas for gamers, if you will. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, then a backhand of that like button would be greatly appreciated. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of EA's press conference this year. Are you excited for all the titles they announced? Do you think it was a complete flop of a show? And if you are excited for some of the things there, let me know as to what you're most what your top 3 titles from the EA press conference are. I'd love to see what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. If you guys find yourself backhanding that like button and you're new to the channel, why don't you go around and backhand that subscribe button whilst you're at it to keep up to date with the content in which I'm releasing here on my channel. Once again guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I'll be seeing you all next time. Have a good day.